Warm Pacific greetings. Please join us as we explore the monitoring, evaluation, and learning systems in the Pacific. The Pacific Monitoring, Evaluation, and Learning Work, or PAC-MEL, is shaped by a shared vision and commitment to strengthening MEL capacity in the region. Results from a regional MEL convening and a series of survey and talanoa with MEL practitioners in the Pacific identified that when assessing one's MEL capacity, most respondents identified their own or their organization's MEL capacity as progressing. There are also some at the beginning stages and others at the established. This diversity acknowledges existing people, tools, and systems supporting MEL practice. The responses collected from the extensive interviews, surveys, and convening provide MEL capacity assessments against 3 domains. 1. People, partnerships, and planning. 2. Collecting, verifying, and analyzing data. And 3. Using data for decision-making. Intelligence collected from the Rebbilib has also been used to put together a concept for Phase 2, to build on lessons from Phase 1 to broaden the PAC-MEL network and encourage donor and implementing partners to join their peers in signing the Duavata Declaration for collaboration in efforts to strengthen and harmonize MEL that is culturally and contextually relevant for the Pacific region. Purposefully selected, the Rebbilib, or navigational stick chart unique to the people of the Marshal Islands, has guided this journey to and from our current position on the map and will steer us beyond as we collectively strengthen monitoring, evaluation, and learning in the Pacific. The use of Pacific approaches for MEL enhanced the commitment to greater effectiveness as it ensured content and processes were contextually relevant and culturally responsive. This translated into a collective vision for strengthened capacity to both undertake and demand MEL for evidence-informed decision-making, informed performance, and accountability. In the spirit of creating a collaborative initiative to strengthen Pacific MEL, a phased approach for engagement was adapted to inform this Rebbilib. The Melanesian fish trap was used to draw and manage key stakeholders from across the Pacific and discover MEL needs by analyzing MEL strengths, challenges, opportunities, and threats. The Kakala research framework grounded the process and fused with the adapted MEL systems framework, helped situate each stakeholder's MEL positions as each of the states of the weaving of the garland or Kakala was completed, creating this Rebbilib. The talanoa, a widely used and acknowledged data collection method in the Pacific, was used to gather data. The authenticity of the data reflects the strengths of relationships with the providers of this knowledge. These approaches are representative of Melanesia, Polynesia, and Micronesia and celebrate Pacific diversity of the people, of the land, and of the ocean. Join us as we journey to find out how Pacific approaches are being used for MEL in the region. We asked representatives at the country, regional academia, and civil society levels to share their own experiences of using MEL in the region.
In the nature of our institution, specifically today Tokyo Affairs, Pacific context is crucial in everything that we do. As a monitoring and evaluation officer, it is important that we understand the needs of the Vanua, the culture, the tradition, and its protocols. Through this, we're able to better implement the policies and programs on the ground.
The work around Pacific approaches and Pacific methodologies basically center around that, around learning, teaching spaces, and research. So how we have to frame MEL into our work has to be built around that, the relationship, build the trust, and so we come up with what we call the concept of drua, which is Fijian but is a double hull canoe, and it's based on accompaniment. So we build the concept of accompaniment around informing our practice. So we use that in terms of how we do research, community research.
Number one would be to recognize the structure, the existing structure that we have in our local institutions. One that would help the donors and development partners in better implementing their programs, and most importantly, monitoring those programs and projects. Second would be with regards to transparency and accountability. It is constant feedback, letting those local institutions and the people know what the findings were. Maybe some have been misinterpreted throughout the years. Maybe the Vanua is able to provide a better reasoning of why this is like this and why things happen. And last but most importantly is respecting culture, the traditions and protocols of the Vanua. Through giving respect, you're able to earn the respect from the Vanua.
Some of the lessons learned over the years, which I would like to share with other development partners at various levels, whether you're talking about organizational or national level, regional, our crop agencies, as well as our development partners, is that the most important, I think, indicator of success has to be a willingness to collaborate and come to the table. That there is a lot of amazing, enriching work that is out there that is not being shared. And so unfortunately, particularly in the MEL space, because a lot of the monitoring, evaluation and learning that happens is captured in reports that are not available publicly and not widely shared. So it's held in closed repositories. And so other partners at different levels who could definitely learn from those lessons never have the opportunity to do so. And so what you find when you go into communities or when you talk to representatives at different levels of development is that in many instances we're all making very similar mistakes. And so I guess the first piece of advice would be, if someone at any of those levels is genuinely interested in meaningful engagement, it means coming to the table, finding out who else is working in that space, and learning from the lessons that have been collated over the years. The most enriching, I think, experience has been being in spaces where you have those different partners at the table and a willingness to engage in a conversation that may expose some vulnerabilities, but at the end of the day, recognizing that everyone at the table has a shared and genuine interest in investing in Pacific futures. From a civil society perspective, I would like to development partners who may not be familiar with the Pacific to invest in the Pacific people ourselves, to give us time, give us space to articulate what does it mean development means to us. The MEL, Pacific MEL is an opportunity. We may not know how we navigate our way, and that's also a process that we need to provide for. Navigate how we see development, but then most of the time criteria are being decided from the global perspective. What does that mean? How can we translate it to what is meaningful and relevant to us?
We hope that the advice shared will strengthen MEL capacity in the Pacific. For more information about Pacific approaches, Pacific methodologies, and the way forward for strengthening MEL capacity in the region, check out our Rebbilib, which is available on our website www.spc.int.